So continuing on with our chapter on personality, and we're still in the psychoanalytic perspective, we're going to talk about Freud's psychosexual stages of development, and I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on all of these, but your quiz may have some of these. Your unit exam will only have what I'm going to point out to you. So when we're looking at Freud's belief, there is a source of pleasure, and if anything happens to prevent that pleasure, you end up getting, quote, stuck there or fixated. And so he said that we have sources of pleasure throughout from birth until death. And so this first stage is the oral stage, and the pleasure source is the mouth. And you think about it, this kind of makes sense, not in Freud's way, because he says it is psychosexual, and sex has no bearing on this. But he said that the mouth is a source of pleasure. And when we look at babies, doesn't everything just go in their mouth instantly? I don't care if it's the dog's tail, the food, every toy goes in their mouth. And so, this is what Freud said that brought them pleasure. And if you say, smack their hand, you're not supposed to touch that, or you remove the bottle or the breast or the pacifier, and it causes trauma to the child, they may be fixated or stuck at this stage. Fixation is just another word for being stuck. And so in this oral stage, what we may end up doing is things that keep our mouth busy: talking a whole lot, eating a lot, biting our nails, chewing on pen or pencil caps. So that's the oral stage. The anal stage, according to Freud, is the anus brought the most pleasure to the child. And how he arrived at this, again, remember, cocaine was involved in part of Freud's life, so we're wondering about that. The anus is where the pleasure comes from. Now, you think about this, what really is happening here, this is not what Freud believed, but this is kind of an interpretation of what was happening there, is for the first time the child is in control of something. You don't get to tell them that they have to poop now, that they have to pee now. They get to control that. And so during potty training is their control. They can choose to do it, choose not to do it. And so if you're too harsh in your potty training time, according to Freud, you become anal retentive or anal expulsive. Anal retentive is probably what we're the most common with, or most used to hearing. You're so anal, meaning extreme control, extreme control. So that could be the cause of being, harshly treated during your toilet training. All right, now this is where it starts to get even more interesting, especially considering this is Freud's psychosexual stages of development, is this phallic stage. So 3 to 6 years. So the source of pleasure, according to Freud, is the genitals. Now, let's go ahead and back up just a second, and I like to kind of clear this up as to where this might have come from. So if you think about it, let's say that you've got your baby sitting, and it's 2 3-year-old cousins, a boy and a girl, and they're 3, so it's no big deal. They go outside and play, and when they do that, they come in and they smell, and so you're going to bathe them. So you put them in the bathtub, and if this is the first time that little boy and that little girl have been naked with the opposite sex, what's the first thing they point out? The little girl points to his penis and says, "Oh my God, what is that?" And he looks at her and says, "Did you break yours off?" And so it becomes very important to them because it's different in their eyes. And so you're going to get called into the daycare, because from then on, the little boy and little girl are going to run around and identify, you're a boy, you have a penis, you're a girl, you have a vagina. All right. So, so I can see where, the focus of the genitals is probably just because it's something very unique. Now, when we're talking about the unit exam, I can guarantee you Oedipus complex will be on there. So if you've taken philosophy, you may have read Oedipus Rex. And if you did, you realize that in this fictional story, the son actually had sex and fathered children with his own mother. Now, the story, back up, I know that's gross, but backing up in the story, the child was removed from his parents. It's a long story, but he didn't know that was his mother and fell in love with her. And so Freud is looking at these women that are coming in, maybe talking about their sons who just are basically what we would call mama's boys. And he's thinking, oh my God, they want to have sex with their mother. You know, little boys will say things like, you know, when I grow up, I want to marry my mom. And so a misinterpretation would be they actually want to have sex with their mother. So that's the Oedipus complex. So when little boys become less possessive over mothers, is right, or if they're possessive at all, comes right around 7 years of age. And according to Freud, the reason they stop hitting on mom is because they suddenly begin to fear that dad may take something out on them, that dad may get tired of him macking on his woman. And so according to Freud, now remember cocaine, according to Freud, that little boys are going to start to bond with the father and back away from the mother due to castration anxiety. Another part that can be on your unit exam. All right, girls, we have the same thing, but for our dads, and that's going to be called the Electra complex. So this is girls' sexual desire for their father. Again, it's a misinterpretation. There are people called, you know, daddy's girls and mama boys. All right, so Electra complex is going to be the female's desire. Now, penis envy was another really interesting thing that Freud did. He believed that women are extremely angry because men have something that they do not. Okay? Men have a penis, and we feel that we have, you know, been kind of stood up. It's not fair. We don't have that. And so when we look at this again and try to understand it, it makes sense. Remember, we talked about Freud being part of that Victorian era, that sexuality was very repressed, that men owned and ruled everything. Women had absolutely no power. And so it wasn't necessarily that women wanted a penis. I do not recall, I swear to you, in all of my childhood Christmases, never once did I tell Santa Claus that I wanted my own penis. So that's just crazy. But what women wanted was what the holders of the penis had. The men had power. So it wasn't that we wanted a penis. It was that the penis represented power and we wanted the power. Okay, so we talked about Oedipus complex. And when the little boy begins to bond with his dad, that's called identification. So he begins to identify with his dad. All right, so everybody, I need for you to know we've thrown Freud's psychosexual stages out the window. Okay, we no longer believe that those stages, but I hope your interpretation or my interpretation helps you kind of understand where this might have come from, and that you don't lose the fact that he did defense mechanisms. He did the 3 parts of the personality, and that was some valid stuff. Okay, all right, guys, on to the next video.